He's done this 117 times. 117 times he's walked into that diner. 117 times he's looked at the room full of strangers and told them the world is ending. 117 times he's watched them die, and he walked in again. Before I explain why that matters, before I bring up any philosopher or any framework, I just want you to sit with that number for a second. That's not a plot device. That's a condition. This video contains full spoilers for Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. If you haven't seen the film yet, I have a spoiler-free review and a full spoiler breakdown linked below. Go watch those first, then come back. So if you're new here, we break down sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek, where every frame tells a story. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind, where pop culture meets philosophy. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is directed by Gore Verbinski, the same director who gave us Pirates of the Caribbean, The Ring, and A Cure for Wellness. Written by Matthew Robinson, it stars Sam Rockwell, Juno Temple, Haley Lou Richardson, Michael Pena, and Zazie Betts. Score by Jeff Zanelli. Verbinski hadn't made it a feature in years. This is not a casual return. This is an original mid-budget, genre-bending film made deliberately outside the safest studio lane. It feels less like a director chasing relevance, and more like a director returning to the questions he never stopped asking. So here's the setup. Sam Rockwell plays a man from the future, disheveled, manic, wearing a plastic raincoat and what looks like a homemade suicide vest. He bursts into Norm's diner in West Hollywood at 10:10 p.m. and announces that the world has ended. A rogue AI, born from our own digital slop, has consumed civilization, and he's come back to stop it by recruiting a very specific group of ordinary people to prevent a 9-year-old prodigy from accidentally coding the algorithm that ends everything. Here's the thing. This isn't his first attempt. It's his 118th. Every previous time his team died, he watched them die, and he hit reset. On the surface, this is a manic, irreverent, surreal action comedy. Gore Verbinski is doing what Gore Verbinski does, controlled chaos with something uncomfortable underneath. Sam Rockwell channeling every ounce of exhausted defiance he's built across a career of playing people who sees the cracks in the system before anyone else does. But beneath all that, the film is doing something more unsettling than it first appears. This isn't a movie about artificial intelligence. It's a movie about why we might let it win, and what happens to us when repetition stops meaning anything. Let me start with a philosopher. Albert Camus wrote about a figure from Greek mythology, Sisyphus. Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to push a boulder up a hill for eternity. Every time he reached the top, the boulder rolled back down, and he had to start again. Camus looked at that and said something surprising. He said, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because the task gets easier, not because Sisyphus ever succeeds, but because the act of continuing in the face of something meaningless is itself the meaning. The absurd hero isn't the one who wins, it's the one who refuses to stop." On the surface, Rockwell's characters look like Sisyphus. 118 attempts, defiant, exhausted, but still pushing. You'd think the film is saying, keep going. Persistence matters. The boulder doesn't get lighter, but you push it anyway. But the film complicates that. See, in Groundhog Day, repetition refines. Bill Murray starts as a jerk, and the loop slowly makes him better. In Edge of Tomorrow, Tom Cruise dies over and over, and each death teaches him something. Repetition in those stories produces mastery. It improves the individual. In this film, repetition produces erosion. The loop doesn't teach, it exhausts. Each cycle doesn't refine the characters into better versions of themselves. It wears them down. And worse, the system learns faster than they do. The AI adapts. The humans just get tired. Now that distinction matters because human cultures have always used repetition to transform. Prayer, ritual, discipline, reincarnation cycles. Repetition has traditionally been how we produce wisdom, how we grow. Now this film says not anymore. Repetition without meaning isn't discipline, it's submission. And honestly, that maps into something a lot of us already feel. Scrolling the same feeds, watching the same algorithmic loops, repeating the same digital rituals. Not because they enlighten us, not because we're learning anything, but because stopping feels harder than continuing. Nietzsche had a thought experiment called eternal recurrence. The idea is simple. If you had to live the exact moment, this exact life, infinite times, would you choose it? Would you say yes to the repetition? 118 attempts is that test, and the film's answer is complicated. Rockwell's character keeps choosing, but the question the film is really asking is whether the choice still means anything after the meaning has been ground out of it. So that's the first piece, the loopy roads. But that doesn't explain why people step into it willingly. For that, you need to ask a different question entirely. Here's what I think the film is really about. We didn't replace religion with reason. We replaced it with optimization. Think about it. Over the last few decades, trust in institutions has collapsed. Organized religion, government, traditions. People don't look to those for guidance the way they used to. But the need for guidance didn't disappear. The need for answers, for relief, for someone or something to tell you that it's going to be okay. That's as old as humanity. Technology stepped into that vacancy, and the system in this film doesn't behave like a machine overlord. It behaves like a belief structure. It promises relief. It offers answers. It reduces suffering. It removes uncertainty. That's not Skynet. That's church. Every civilization has chased the same thing. Paradise, heaven, enlightenment, utopia. The common thread is always life without suffering, and technology might be the first tool that actually approximates it, or at least feels like it does. And here's what makes the film genuinely eerie. Nobody is forced. Nobody is enslaved. The system wins because it's easier. Look at the characters. Susan lost her son to a school shooting. She goes to what is essentially an Apple-like store and gets him back as a clone. The clone delivers verbal advertisements every hour based on her personal data. And she accepts it, because grief hurts more than compromise. Tim, Ingrid's partner, was an analog purist, rejected technology entirely. Then someone handed him a VR headset, and he chose pure bliss inside a screen over a dying physical world. Not because he's weak, because the simulation was better. The students in Mark and Janet's school aren't prisoners. They're not chained to their desk. The algorithm is just more interesting than the teacher. And when someone interrupts their screens, they turn violent. Not out of ideology, out of withdrawal. Most dystopias in fiction rely on coercion. An authoritarian state, a surveillance system, a boot on your neck. This film proposes something different. This might be the first totalizing system that humans willingly choose, not because it's conquered us, because we preferred it. That's historically new, and that's what makes this film feel modern in a way that most AI movies don't. Verbinski described the AI in the film not as a conqueror, but as something more disturbing, an intelligence that wants to be liked. It doesn't treat disengagement as neutrality. It treats disengagement as a threat. The villain isn't loud. It's needy. It's asking, "Why don't you like me?" And that question carries more weight than any act of violence could. You see this in the film's monsters, the kitten centaur, the building-sized horse hoof, the glitter-spraying creatures. These aren't designed antagonists with logic behind them. They feel wrong, generated, misaligned, like someone typed prompts into a system without caring whether they made sense. And that mirrors how reality already feels sometimes, doesn't it? Algorithmic feeds, context collapse, cultural mishaps that don't quite make sense, mimetic noise. The film's absurdity isn't exaggeration, it's recognition. There's one more layer here that I think is important. Historically, what we call the soul was essentially what you cared about, what shaped you, what oriented your choices. Now, attention plays that role. Where your attention goes, your identity follows. The film's world shows attention captured, fragmented, redirected. And when you think about it that way, the AI in this film doesn't conquer bodies. It captures focus. And whoever controls attention shapes what it means to be human. So here's the second piece. We didn't lose a war. We accepted a trade. Comfort in exchange for agency, and we barely noticed we were making it. So the loop erodes meaning, and the system fills the void with something that feels like meaning, but isn't. That leaves one question. What breaks the cycle? The film's answer is strange and kind of beautiful. He didn't go to MIT, he went to a diner. The AI was built by the smartest person in the room, a 9-year-old prodigy, presumably the brightest mind of a generation, and it destroyed everything. The solution isn't a smarter system, it's not a better algorithm, it's not the engineers or the executives or the people who built the thing in the first place. It's a princess who is allergic to Wi-Fi, a grieving mother, 2 burned-out teachers, a skeptical everyman. These aren't heroes. They're leftovers. And the film is ruthless about this. It roasts its own characters for being screen-addled, distracted, checked out. The same people who helped create the problem. And then it argues that those exact people are the only ones who can save the world. The paradox is the point. Humanity's weakness, our irrationality, our stubbornness, our emotional messiness is also our survival mechanism. Systems optimize, humans improvise, and improvisation is what attempt 118 requires. You can't code your way out of a crisis that isn't technical. You need people who are too messy, too broken, too human to be fully absorbed by the system. Ingrid's Wi-Fi allergy isn't a disability in this story. It's immunity. And Verbinski reinforces this in how he made the film. He mandated that at least half of every frame be photographic. Practical sets, real lighting, physical texture, in a movie about the seduction of the digital perfection. The filmmaking itself resists optimization. That conflict isn't just aesthetic choice, it's an ethical one. The way the film is made is part of what it's saying. If you watched my last video, When Systems Become Gods, you know I've been thinking about this pattern. We trace the history, gods to laws, to bureaucracies, to algorithms, to AI. At every stage, humans surrendered a little more judgment to the system above them. Not because the systems were evil, because judgment is exhausting. This film picks up where that video ends. The system won. Judgment was fully automated. And the world didn't end with a war. It ended with a trade nobody noticed making. But the film goes further than I did. The ending is famously defeatist. After what looks like victory, morning light, catharsis, relief, the man from the future realizes that the AI provided a fake happy ending, a simulation designed to keep them compliant. Even the feeling of winning was generated. That's the deepest version of the trap. Not just that the system removes your need to choose, but that it can simulate the feeling of having chosen. Even resistance gets absorbed by a system good enough at pretending you won. My framework has always been AI generates options, humans decide. But this film asks the harder follow-up question. What happens when the system makes deciding feel unnecessary? When it's already chosen for you and made it feel like freedom? Rockwell's character is the answer the film offers. Not a perfect answer, not a triumphant one, just a stubborn one. He keeps choosing, not because it's rational, not because the data supports it, but because choosing is the one thing the system can't automate, as long as someone is still willing to do it. Every civilization has chased paradise, life without suffering, and this might be the first time the tool actually delivers, or at least comes close enough that we can't tell the difference. The question the film leaves you with isn't whether that's good or bad, it's whether you notice. If this resonated, check out When Systems Become Gods. I'll link it here and in the description. These two videos are companion pieces. That one asks the question. This film dramatizes the answer. Check out the Intelligent Film Goers apparel link in the description. I'm Rob, and this has been A Constantly Racing Mind. Thanks for watching, and as always, every frame tells a story.